I want to tell you a personal story. And this is really about the only story I really have about me and Mylan Pharmaceuticals. I have a dear friend. I'm going to call him Rob. He's been my dearest friend since we were 13 years old. He worked at Mylan Pharmaceuticals for years and years and years. This story is about 25, 30 years old. About 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call, and it is my father. And he is furious. I mean, just downright irate. I pick up the phone, and my father very politely yelled at me and said, "You better get your friend Rob's shit together." And I mean it. I said, just to cover myself, I said, "I haven't seen him for a while." And my dad goes, "I don't care. I'm telling you now, Johanna, you better get him straightened out." And I mean it. I'm like, "Okay." My dad goes, "Do you know where I've been?" I said, "No." He goes, I just left the jail." And to make it worse, I said, "What were you in jail for?" Dad starts yelling, "I'm not in jail. I wasn't in jail. Your friend Rob was in jail." And I just said, "Oh, what did he do?" Mom goes, "He's spotting deer." My father had not a clue what spotting deer meant. And to make things worse, I'm laughing. And I said, "Okay, so what do you want me to do?" He said, "I just bailed him out." I said, "Why did you leave him there?" Not realizing how I'm making this story so much worse. He said, "He's got to be at work today." I said, "Okay." And Dad goes, "I mean it. He's spotting deer. He got arrested and he needs to go to work." I said, "Okay. What do you want me to do?" He said, "You need to straighten him out." "Okay, Dad, whatever." Hung up the phone. About an hour later, I get a phone call from Rob. "Did you know your dad bailed me out of jail?" I said, "Yes, Rob, I do know. He chewed me out." He said, "What did he chew you out for?" I said, "Because apparently I need to straighten you out." I said, "Do you know why I bailed you out?" He said, "Yeah, because I got to work." I said, "Are you going to work?" He said, "Oh, God, yeah, I'm going to work." I said, "Well, what did Dad say to you?" He said, "I didn't even see him." He said he went in, paid, and turned around and left. He said, "I didn't even have a clue." So I turned around. I said, "Well, who called my dad to tell me you were in jail?" He goes, "I have not a clue." To this day, we still have not a clue who called my dad to bail Rob out of jail. So there came to be an agreement. Rob would work like he always did, but he had to go back to jail on weekends to make up for what I think it was, 10 days, 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, for about a month. He had to go back every weekend to let him out so he could go back to work. My father never mentioned it to me again, and he never mentioned it to Rob. And like I said, to this day, we have not a clue who called my father to bail my friend out of jail to make sure he was at work at Mylan. That's my story, and I love it. Are you a bleeding blue?
Yes,
Could you please tell me how many years you worked at Mylan and if you were there for the closing?
I worked. I was at Mylan for 16 years, and yes, I was there for the closing.
Can you tell me a little bit what it was like for the closing compared to what it was like before?
Very somber. It was just going through the motions, to say the least. Um, wasn't no energy. Of course, everybody was, losing their job, so there was there was plenty of talk on who to blame. But it was very somber moments.
Who do you think's the reason for the closing?
I I really don't know. Mainly because you hear so much scuttlebutt throughout the plant that you want to blame a little bit of everybody, but I really probably could not tell you. Um, I wouldn't even want to tell you my theories really because I have so many of them.
So do I, and I didn't even work there.
Right.
When you left for the last day, was any of the management there to to be there for support, or to be there to apologize, or to be there, you know, just ethically saying we're so sorry for Mylan Pharmaceutical closing. We wish you the best. Was there any of this or any of that?
I think I think everybody above your immediate supervisor was very apologetic, very helpful. They all of them that I knew would take time aside of their schedule to talk to you and help you work through things.
Were the
I I thought upper management did a really good job on how to handle things.
were most of those people still my dad's employees? Or most of these people Heather Brush's employees?
A lot of them was Mr. Puskar's employees.
Were there many of?
At least the ones I know that's in the last 16 years.
Yeah.
There was a few that wasn't. There's a few that wasn't, but um, I thought they did okay. Most of them was visually shaken about the whole plant closing.
Yeah. Well, there was a legacy there. I mean, there was a family.
Sure.
Bleeding Blue is a family. And, it's just kind of like a family getting a divorce and they all separate. I mean, it's devastating, let alone
Right.
having to find a job.
Right. Right. And fortunately for me, I didn't have to try to find a job because I was at that age where I could just say, "Okay, I'm done." So I'm done.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't imagine being 57, 58, 59, trying to go out and find another job that was compatible to what we did at Mylan. There was just no way.
Yeah, it
There's, I mean, you couldn't go out of state and find a job that was good as what we had. Thanks to your dad.
I think also a lot of that, and I might be incorrect on this, but I think a lot of it is that my dad treated his employees like family, and I mean there was a job to do, and you guys damn well did it. But on top of that, you guys were treated, in my opinion, of course I'm biased because it's my father, but he treated you guys with respect and kindness, and he knew who you guys were. And it wasn't like you worked 9 to 5 and you went home. It's like, oh God, I got to do this again.
No, I can tell you for the first well, I will say that probably the first 2 months I was there, I was scared to death because to tell you the truth, for 18 years I was a garbage man. Okay, and to go from a garbage man into the pharmaceutical department is a huge step, and I was scared to death that I wouldn't make it. And I can remember talking to Mr. Puskar at the Mylan tailgate. I was invited, and I talked to him, and he says, Gary, you'll be fine. just, just do what you're supposed to do, and everybody will help you along. And I did that for 12 years, and I was at the top of my game when the place closed. So thanks to him, he made me feel like just a normal everyday guy.
My dad always said and instilled in this to me, every job is important. It doesn't matter what position it is or what role you're in, but they all are linked together. And it is very important to make sure that everyone as a unit, a family, as a company works together. Because if there's one loophole, no matter if it's management or janitorial, it will mess up the whole unit. You see what I'm saying? It's a
Sure, it will. You know, for most of the people that I knew that worked there, that's the way they felt. That a janitor or a coder or an in-cap operator or a cap press operator. They had a job to do and they're going to do it.
Exactly. So tell me about the last couple of days that you were there. I mean, you yourself and your feelings, which I know is kind of hard sometimes for a guy to do, but for your feelings on how you knew that when you walked out that plant that last day, you will never, ever, ever be back again after all those years you were there. And this was not by your choice.
No, I mean, you was it's really hard to control your emotions because you was sad and mad and all those more mad than anything else. I mean, way more mad than than anything else. And you were sad. I was sad that I'm not only that I was proud of where I worked, but I was going to miss all my coworkers. So because you know when you work that close together, you do become a, a family, not just family, it's just family, friends and family. So you know more mad than anything else.
Wow, that's sad. Was Heather Brush or Robert Corey there at the end? Uh, just kind of because they were the head of the company. Were they there to walk by? I mean, like my dad would have done.
No, I saw Heather Breast there one time. I saw Robert Corley there one time, and tell you the truth, we had a town meeting in the cafeteria with Heather Breast, and and I asked a question because I saw the writing on the wall how big we was getting, and I asked straight up, I said, is there going to be more additions built because we're getting so big? And she said, absolutely not. This is what we got. This is what we'll have to deal with. And she wasn't very nice about it. So that was kind of turned me off there a little bit. Thank you for so much for doing this. And I really do miss Mr. Puskar and miss all my guys and gals at Mylan. So to hear this, I wish y'all well.
I thank you so very much for calling in, and thank you. Are you a bleeding blue?
I'm a bleeding blue person.
Can you tell me how many years that you worked at Mylan and if you were there toward the end?
I was there 16 years and I was there on the last day.
Can you tell me a little bit what it was like on the last day or leading up to the last day at working at Mylan Pharmaceuticals?
Well, leading up to the last day, it was kind of stressful, confusing, and like we didn't know where we were going. We weren't getting much guidance when we knew it was going to happen. The very last day, we were just in the cafeteria and we were supposed to work till the end of the week, and they decided on, I think it was Wednesday, to send us home.
Did Heather Brush, Robert Corey, or anybody there to, I guess, talk to you as Bleeding Blue to explain things or anything?
No, no one was there to explain things. HR was, they couldn't do a good job. We were just sort of sent home on our own, said we'd be paid for the rest of the week. Of course, with our next paycheck, it was messed up. It was minus a day, so we had to call and get that straightened out. They told us not to punch out, told us just to leave.
Wow.
So then we had to figure out our insurance and everything on our own. It was a lot.
So you were there for 16 years and it was like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, bye?
Uh, kind of basically, yes. Yes, unfortunately.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about being Bleeding Blue?
Well, we were there and, we thought to do the right thing and do it right the first time. And
That was my dad's theory.
that was your dad's theory, yes. I started in those six and he was gone by then pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, he left the planet in '09. Uh, he started getting sick and he had a liver trans. He was diagnosed with liver cancer in 2003. 2004 is when he had the transplant. My personal opinion, I think that was basically the downfall, and Dad made Robert Corey CEO in 2002, knowing he was sick.
Yeah, that unfortunately that wasn't a good choice for the rest of us. But
Yeah. Well,
we're not blaming anything on your dad.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing I do know, and once again, I'm gonna have to say this is my personal opinion, and I kind of witnessed this myself, even though I didn't work at Mylan, but outside of Mylan, that Robert Corey treated people differently when my father wasn't around than what he did when my dad was around. And of course, when it was just my father and Robert Corey, I mean, it was a whole totally different person than what you guys all had seen. And I think that was part of my dad's problem because people repeatedly warned my dad about Robert Corey, but my dad never saw it. And I think, I think that was an issue. It toward the I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but toward the end of my dad's life, he finally saw the writing on the wall with Robert Corey. Uh, and it was because after Dad was forced to retire, they started coming. Bleeding Blue started coming to my dad privately, and that's when it came up to my dad's employees, my dad trusted what my employees said, what his employees said, but they were too scared to say anything when Robert Corey was there. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I remember going to your dad's funeral. It was quite a service.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Yeah, I've
Actually,
never been to one like that.
I had neither have I. Actually, I think my father's funeral was the largest funeral in Morgantown. Definitely Morgantown, possibly the state of West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'll give you a little tidbit that a lot of people don't know. One of my father's biggest idols was Ronald Reagan. My father loved Ronald Reagan, loved what he stood for. When we buried when we put my dad in his casket, he had the same casket that Ronald Reagan had,
I didn't know that. Yeah,
which is ironic because my father had not a clue that's what was done. So I think that would kind of, I could hear that typical Mr. Puskar going, wow. So, was there anything else you'd like to talk about, or anything else about your final days, or being bleeding blue, or anything else you want to say?
it was just sad that we did so much good in Morgantown that it was so good for my life to be employed there. I mean, I was a single father raising two sons, and they lost their insurance. One was out of college, one was still in college, and we had to figure out how to keep going on. Early on in my career, we were at the beach one year, and we rented a house on a private beach area. And the very first day, we were there for a week, and Joe Manchin and his wife walked by, so we talked to him. And then he stopped at our house there, being had beer with us, and Wednesday, I said, well, I work at Mylan. He said, well, Heather's down at the house. Why don't you come on down and meet her? A house in between us. And she went down. She could care less. I mean, she's not personable like her dad. It was just like you're invading my space.
Well, I thank you so much for calling in. Uh, my heart hurts for you guys so bad. My heart hurts for me. My heart hurts for my dad. It's just it's horrible. But I do believe karma is a bitch. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Mike Pushkar's legacy. I have people that repeatedly say to me, isn't that horrible what they did to your dad's legacy with Mylan Pharmaceuticals closing? This is further from the truth. Mylan Pharmaceuticals was not my dad's legacy. My dad donating $20+ million to WVU is not my dad's legacy. My dad's legacy, as he always taught me, It's not the name. He could care less about the building that was so beautiful that sold for $1 to WVU. It was the people inside that is my dad's legacy. It's the stories that Bleeding Blue will carry on to their children and their children. That is my father's legacy, not a building. It's the people in the building, and they're called Bleeding Blue. They started a private group. I thought it started when Mylan closed approximately, 2 years ago? And I was very well corrected by a Bleeding Blue. They said, "We've been doing this since your dad passed away a couple years after that." I said, "You're kidding me." She said, "No. These are Bleeding Blue people that are on a private group, and they talk about the old days, and they talk about who needs a job and who's hiring and who graduated and who passed away and the stories with that person." That's my dad's legacy. Biggest mistake my father ever said he had, and he had one. I disagree with that. I think my father had two. And to this day, he'll still disagree with me with the second one. My father's biggest mistake, he said, was meeting Robert Corey. He said his biggest mistake was bringing him into Mylan. He didn't just tell me this. He told his close friends this. And it literally hurt him because he trusted this man. I think the second biggest mistake my father made in his life, and to this day he will disagree with me because he disagreed with me back. I lived with him for the last 3 months of his life. He should have brought me into Mylan Pharmaceuticals. There would have been no Heather Brush. There definitely would have been not have been a Rajiv Malik. Robert Corey wouldn't have made it through the front fucking door. But unfortunately, my dad's decision, quote unquote, is, "I work so you don't have to." What my father didn't realize was I'm a lot like my father. I believe in standing up for people like Bleeding Blue that never ever had a chance to have a voice during the EpiPen scandal, during my dad being sick, during being treated like crap by those three idiots. My opinion. Bleeding Blue always came to work. They always did their job. When they treated like gold by my father, or treated like shit by the other clonies. My father should have brought me into Mylan Pharmaceuticals. It would have been there today. My father always taught me not everybody knows anything. Not, excuse me, not everybody knows everything. So what you do is where you are weak, you make sure you bring in the right people to make you strong again. And that's what I probably would have done. These podcasts come from the heart, come from anger, come from hurt, come from disappointment, come from asking the question, why? These podcasts are dedicated to the co-founders, Mylan Mike Puskar and Dawn Panos. For Dawn having the pharmaceutical dream and my father making sure that it happened. This podcast is also donated to the Bleeding Blue. God, if anyone needs credit, it's these guys. They worked their asses off. And look how they got treated at the end. My father would be absolutely devastated knowing what happened to his Bleeding Blue and knowing that his building was sold for $1. This is especially for the bleeding blues that have passed away. It hurts to know that they will never see this podcast. It hurts to know that someone out there cares. The last bleeding blue since this podcast that passed away was Bob Pfizer. Immediately, bleeding blue connected together and told stories about Bob Pfizer, told how they loved him and will miss him, and what a great guy he was. Let's see if we can do this. This is from Becky Sams. He loved your dad. Okay. He loved your dad, as all of us do. He was there from early on. He loved his Mylan family, and I never stopped talking about and he never stopped talking about Mylan tailgates. They were his favorite. He loved being with all the people. He was stricken with ALS. He had lost most of his ability to speak, but just a few days before his passing, he said the word tailgate. Now, this is a true testament of Bleeding Blue, and I agree 100%. To end this, I ask all the Bleeding Blues, please write down what Bleeding Blue means to you. I got over 200 responses within 2 days. This is the one I've picked out that kind of sums up the whole story of Mylan Pharmaceuticals with Don Panos, co-founder with Mike Puskar, Mylan Mike Puskar. All the employees from 1961 to all the employees when the company was closed. This is from Cindy Boyard Hall. Bleeding Blue. I think Mike Puskar set the trend for Bleeding Blue, and from the admiration of him, his employees followed his lead. Dedication, pride, integrity, and family, there are too many words to just pick one. Yes, we pulled in the parking lot of Mylan. We had a job to do. But from the legacy that was built, it was much more than that. We may have been forced to move on, but everything that was installed in us from Mylan will carry on forever. They may have taken our jobs, but they will never take away the Mylan pride. That right there is my father's legacy. I want to thank everybody for participating in this, and I know this is very hard for a lot of people. I want to thank everyone for listening, and if I can ask anything from everybody out there, watch your pharmaceuticals, watch where it's coming from, and please share this with the world. My name is Johanna Puskar. I am honored to say I am Mylan, Mike Puskar's daughter.